Hi guys, so I'd like to quote from Jared Harris's character from the HBO show Chernobyl. He said, "Every lie we tell incurs a debt to the truth." Now, Boris Johnson and Brexiteers have been telling lots of lies and they've been running up many debts. Now, unfortunately, it seems that Northern Ireland is paying those debts. I want to show you some examples of Boris Johnson's lies when it comes to Brexit and, of course, in regards to Northern Ireland. So let's hear what he had to say.
I want to make it absolutely clear that under no circumstances, whatever happens, will I allow the EU or anyone else to create any kind of division down the Irish Sea or to attenuate our union.
Then he said in 2019,
they said that we couldn't change the withdrawal agreement in the 90 days that we had, and they said that we'd never get rid of the backstop. They said we wouldn't be able to get a new deal. We did get a new deal. We got a great deal for this House and this country, and we'll get a great new free trade agreement.
And then he was speaking to business leaders in Northern Ireland.
Somebody asked you to do that. Tell them to ring up the Prime Minister, and I will direct them to throw that form in the bin.
Because Steve Harvey said he would.
No.
That's the problem.
What do you export from Northern? Do you export illegal weapons or endangered species?
Part of the business, we export a lot of small £50, £100 shipments to pharmacies. We do medical diagnostics.
You'll be all right.
And we cannot afford to increase the costs on small shipments. It's not feasible.
You're not going. There will be no forms, no checks, no barriers of any kind. You will have unfettered access.
There will be no checks or no forms of any kind. There will be unfettered access. That's what Boris Johnson said to business leaders in Northern Ireland. Boris Johnson said there would be no border down the Irish Sea. Now let's hear what the current situation is. Now this is the Justice Minister in Northern Ireland who's talking about the violence that has taken place recently.
What is your view of the idea that suspending the Northern Ireland Protocol and what is effectively those extra checks and that border in the Irish Sea is a way to try and resolve the problems that on goods in Northern Ireland that have been taking place over the last few weeks and months?
Well, suspension of the Northern Ireland Protocol is breaking international and domestic law. And I don't believe as Justice Minister that we should be giving solutions that involve law breaking when the whole purpose of what we are trying to create in Northern Ireland is a more lawful society. The government need to recognise the difficulties of the protocol, as we do here in Northern Ireland, and need to work through the proper channels with the EU in order to find solutions to those issues.
See, the problem here is that Brexiteers and Boris Johnson believed that they could get Brexit done. They sold a lie to the public that we'd be able to get Brexit off the TVs. We'd be able to sell this idea that we could package Brexit into an oven-ready deal, stick it in the oven at gas mark 5 or whatever it was Boris Johnson had said, and then it would be over. Then we would win our majority and Brexit would go away. Now, of course, people who understood the Good Friday Agreement, understood the problems in Northern Ireland, said, no, that's not going to be the case, Boris. That's not going to be the case, Brexiteers. And the response from them, of course, was that's Project Fear. Stop engaging in in this type of scaremongering. You're trying to stop Brexit. You're trying to stop freedom. And now these are the consequences. The British government, Boris Johnson's administration, need to sort this out. They need to go to the European Union. They need to sit down with them. They need to look at the Northern Ireland Protocol and work it out. Try and help the businesses in Northern Ireland. Try and do what they can. But remember that the Northern Ireland Protocol is going to stay. It's international law at this stage. The DUP and extreme elements in Northern Ireland want to suspend it, want it thrown away. The problem with that is that they're not presenting an alternative. They're not saying, let's replace the Northern Ireland Protocol with X. They're just saying, throw it away. If you throw away the Northern Ireland Protocol, you would be breaking international law, as Naomi Long has said. And then what do you have? You have a breach of the Good Friday Agreement, eventually, and then you're going to have Republican violence. At the moment, a lot of this violence that's taking place is on the loyalist side. Now, what is the way out of this? I don't know. I think Boris Johnson has to step up to the plate. He has to be present here. We have seen examples of him in the past when it came to flooding, waiting and waiting and waiting until it came to a stage where he had to go and show his face. I'm sorry, the flooding is extremely damaging, extremely worrying. It's something very serious, but this is potentially worse than that. There's a potential for Northern Ireland to return to the bad old days. And Boris Johnson is sitting on his hands here. He thinks that Brexit has been done. We can move on from that. Northern Ireland can be ignored. Please, I'm begging Boris Johnson not to ignore the situation, because many lives are at risk here.
But we have to recognise, and this is fundamental, that when we decided that Brexit was the way forward, and when we chose a particularly hard Brexit, that there would be consequences, and those consequences would be felt most acutely in Northern Ireland, where there is a land border and where identity issues are so tied up with border issues. And we made this very clear to the UK government throughout the process. Instead, they promised people unfettered access, which is not the case, and they denied the existence of borders even as those borders were being erected. And I think that dishonesty and the lack of clarity around these issues has contributed to a sense of anger in parts of our community. But none of that is to justify the violence that we have seen directed at the police in recent days. And I think it's telling that violence happened at a time when unionist politicians failed in leadership by directing their anger at the Chief Constable and at the PSNI.
If we look back at previous governments, Tony Blair, John Major, these were actually serious people. We can disagree with their politics. We can disagree with some of the actions that they had taken when they were Prime Minister. But when it came to Northern Ireland, they understood the seriousness of the matter. They understood that we need to protect peace. We need to maintain the peace process, the Good Friday Agreement. We need to protect those things. Boris Johnson doesn't understand the Good Friday Agreement. He doesn't understand Northern Ireland, or he doesn't care. And at this stage, I frankly don't know which is worse. There's a real concern now that things are going to get out of hand. And as they get out of hand, it's going to be more difficult to put the genie back in the bottle. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.
I want to say a big thank you to all of my patrons. You ensure that this channel continues to exist. I'm eternally grateful for all of your support. If you join Patreon, you will receive instant access to our Discord server, where we have both audio and video chats. You can chat with me and other patrons, where we discuss important and non-important issues. Becoming a patron per month costs about the same as a large coffee, so why not check it out?